James, please, writes Dan, make it make sense. I watched all night and I really don't understand what happened. Gemma in Newcastle upon Tyne.
So, if like me, you're still picking through the wreckage of Wednesday's Gaza ceasefire vote, trying to understand what it was all about, then here are 3 different takes on it from Owen Jones, Phil Morehouse and James O'Brien. These are just bite-sized pieces, and if you want to see the whole videos, there's a link in the description below.
So why all the aggro? Because, as I said earlier this week, this debate had nothing to do with the people suffering and dying in Palestine. It is entirely about the SNP and Tories trying to give Labour a headache and expose divisions.
Because of grubby, cynical and disgraceful machinations by soulless, heartless political climbers, nope, not going to pull my punches here, whose track record already demonstrably shows they have no interest in Palestinian life, or indeed anything meaningful except seeking power for its own sake.
So yesterday morning he was facing possibly his worst moment in Parliament as leader of the Labour Party, because many of his MPs, up to and including senior ministers, are very keen, perhaps even desperate, to vote for a ceasefire in the Middle East, to join Prince William and countless others in calling for the killing to stop.
If the SNP just wanted Parliament to call for a ceasefire, which is what they say they did, then their leaders should be delighted today, because that's what they got. I mean, imagine this, the 3rd largest party in Parliament, and they got what they wanted with unanimous support. That's marvellous. Only they're really angry, because what they really wanted was headlines of Labour disunity.
Let's just sum up what's happened. The Tory government, as you'll be aware, has backed Israel's mass slaughter of Gaza from the start. That matters. Why? Because the UK arms Israel and uses its diplomatic power to support Israel.
And as things stood, because of parliamentary rubric, it would have been impossible for the Labour MPs keen to vote for a ceasefire to do so without voting for an SNP motion, which went a little bit further in the context of, or rather didn't go as far in the context of conditions as in meaningful legislation. Here is what would have to happen in order for us to call for a ceasefire.
Here's the thing. Labour's amendment should not have been selected by the Speaker. That is parliamentary convention. Protocol means the government's amendment is selected to be voted on. So instead, Starmer faced a massive rebellion because he was not going to back the SNP amendment. Why? Overwhelmingly, because he could not countenance voting for a motion which held Israel responsible for collective punishment.
Collective punishment is it's not just a couple of words that happen to fit what's happening. It is a specific breach of Article 33 of the Geneva Convention, and a court has not said that Israel is guilty of this breach, not as yet.
So I think that the issue perhaps of collective punishment became crucial, the accusation of collective punishment. This is where you perhaps are paying even more attention than I was.
So imagine everyone's surprise when the Speaker suddenly selects Labour's amendment.
By yesterday evening, the SNP leader in Westminster, Stephen Flynn, had led his members out of the chamber while complaining that everybody else was treating it like a pantomime. Nothing says stop treating things like a pantomime than marching off stage, presumably shouting, "Oh no, we won't." The Conservatives were in complete disarray to the point where they didn't vote at all for the ceasefire that a significant number of their MPs actually want, while the Labour Party passed happily through the lobby to vote in favour of the motion that they had brought, or the amendment that they had brought to the SNP motion. So what was everybody actually cross about?
Now, Nicholas Watt, political editor of BBC Newsnight, who's very well connected, said, "Senior Labour figures tell me that the Speaker was left in no doubt that Labour would bring him down after the general election unless he called Labour's Gaza amendment. The message was, you will need our votes to be re-elected as Speaker after election, with strong indications this would not be forthcoming if he failed to call the Labour amendment."
Well, there's one spurious report going around that Labour threatened to bring Hoyle down after the election if he didn't. That would have been absolutely disgraceful if true. However, it's turned out to be untrue. It was a BBC reporter stirring, and they did sort of rein back from their original comment later on.
Click here for an angry rant about the whole Gaza ceasefire vote.